Now we are going to start with the another topic, which is the radiometric dating. Now this method, it is used to find the ages of various rocks and buildings and other objects which were once living. So the radiometric dating method, it is based upon radioactive decay. Now this method, it uses the principle of radioactive decay. So what is radioactive decay? In radioactive decay, a parent nuclei, it decays to daughter nuclei by either alpha decay, beta decay or gamma decay. So the parent nuclei, which is less stable, it decays into a daughter nuclei which is more stable as compared to the parent. So this is what radioactive decay is. Now the radiometric dating, this method, it is using this method, the age of many rocks and objects can be determined. So this method of radiometric dating, it is used to determine the age of various rocks and objects. Now these rocks and objects, they once had a biological origin, means these objects, they were once living. So those objects, which were once living, their age can be determined using the radiometric dating, which uses a principle of radioactive decay. Now this method, it is based on the fact that the decay of a radioactive nuclide, it proceeds at a constant rate. That is, the nuclei, it decays into a daughter nuclei and it is not affected by any environmental conditions. So this decay, radioactive decay, any radioactive decay, it is independent of any environmental conditions. So this is independent of any environmental factors. So the rate of disintegration, that is dN by dt, is equal to minus of lambda into capital N. So this we have already seen, and we can see the rate of radioactive decay, it does not depend upon any environmental factors like temperature, pressure or any other factor. Now in the case of radiometric dating, what we find is, we find the ratio of amount of the parent nuclei divided by the amount of the stable daughter nuclei which is present in that object. Now what is the main principle on which this radiometric dating it works? So in that particular object whose age we want to determine, so this object will contain some parent nuclei, and this parent nuclei which is present in this object, it will continuously decay into daughter nuclei. So in this particular object, there will be present some parent nuclei also, and there will be present some daughter nuclei also. So what we determine is, we find the ratio of the amount of parent nuclei to that of stable daughter nuclei, and if more amount of daughter nuclei is present, it means that the age of that particular object which we are considering is very large. So this ratio of amount of parent nuclei to that of the amount of stable daughter nuclei, it helps us in determining the age. So the greater the proportion of the daughter nuclei, the older is the specimen. So more is the daughter nuclei present in the object, means more the parent nuclei has decayed, means more the time has elapsed, which means the older the specimen is. So this ratio, it helps us in determining the age of various objects. Now let's consider how this method, how the age of the various objects, it is measured with the help of beta active carbon isotope. Now this carbon isotope is carbon 14. The normal carbon that you see, that we know, is carbon 12, but this carbon 14, it has same number of 6 number of protons, but it has 8 number of neutrons. So the age of various objects and rocks or any other thing can be determined using the carbon isotope, the radioactive isotope, which is carbon 14. Now first of all, we will see how this carbon 14 is present in the various plants and animals, because to find the age of any specimen, that particular radioactive isotope must be present inside that specimen to determine its age. So how this carbon-14 is present inside the various plants and animals? So first of all, we will see how it is formed. Now there are various cosmic rays. There are millions and millions of protons that continuously strike the atmosphere of the earth, which are called as cosmic rays. So these are various high energetic particles that continuously strike the atmosphere of the earth. Now when these cosmic rays, they strike with they bombard with the atoms which are present in the atmosphere, then various secondary particles are emitted in this particular collision. So various secondary particles are emitted, and neutrons are one of those secondary particles which are emitted after the collision of cosmic rays with that of atoms which are present in the atmosphere. So large number of neutrons, they are emitted as the secondary particles. Now these neutrons, they combine with the nitrogen which is present in the atmosphere. These neutrons, they are captured by the nucleus of nitrogen 14, and when the nitrogen 14, it captures the neutrons, so when nitrogen 14, it combines with one neutron, it will give the formation of the radioactive carbon. So this will result into the formation of radioactive carbon, and a proton will be emitted in this particular process. So first of all, cosmic rays, they strike the atmosphere of the earth, and when they strike, they collide with various atoms which are present in the atmosphere, and after this collision, various secondary particles are emitted, and from these secondary particles, one of those particles are neutrons. Now these neutrons, they are captured by the nitrogen atoms which are present in atmosphere, and this will lead into the formation of carbon-14. Now this carbon-14 is a radioactive carbon. Now this carbon-14, it combines with the oxygen molecule which is present in the atmosphere, and it will result into the formation of radioactive carbon dioxide. So this radioactive carbon, it combines with the oxygen molecule, and it will give the formation of radioactive carbon dioxide. Now this radioactive carbon dioxide, it is continuously consumed by the plants. So the plants, they take up the carbon dioxide, so they will also breathe in the radioactive carbon dioxide. So radioactive carbon dioxide is taken up by the plants, and from this procedure, the radioactive carbon, it goes into the bodies of the plants. And the animals which consume upon the plants, these animals, when they consume upon the plants, so this radioactive carbon, it goes into the bodies of animals as well. So this is how radioactive carbon is present in almost every living being which is present on earth. The plants, they breathe in the radioactive carbon dioxide, and hence radioactive carbon gets transferred into the plants. Now the animals, they consume the plants, and in this manner the radioactive carbon, it gets transferred into the bodies of animals. So other carnivorous animals which consume another animals, so the radioactive carbon gets transferred into their bodies as well. So in this manner, all the plants and the animals which are present on earth, they have radioactive carbon present in their body. Along with the radioactive carbon, there will be ordinary carbon present as well. So the plants and animals, they will have both radioactive carbon as well as they will have ordinary carbon present in their bodies. Now all the animals and plants, they have same proportion of radioactive carbon and that of ordinary carbon. So all the animals and the plants which are present on the earth, they have same proportion of radioactive carbon and that of ordinary carbon, and we will see how this principle, it will help us in determining the age of various rocks and objects, that can be determined which once had a biological origin. So we will see how this whole procedure, how this radioactive carbon, it helps us in determining the age of various rocks and objects. So now we had seen that when the animals or plants, they are living, so they continuously consume the radioactive carbon as well as the ordinary carbon. So there is a continuous consumption of both type of carbons. But now after the death of the plants or animals, so what happens after the death of plant or animal? There is no intake of carbon. The intake of carbon is only when the plant or animal is in living form. As soon as they die, there is no intake of carbon. Now let's say at the time of the death of plant or animal, at the time of death of the living being, so there is this much amount of radioactive carbon and there is this much amount of ordinary carbon which was present in the body. So at the time of death of any plant or animal, let's say this is the amount of radioactive carbon present in the body and this is the amount of the ordinary carbon which is present in the body of plant or animal. So this is the condition when the plant or animal has just died. So we have referred to this as 0 years. Now as soon as the time passes, as soon as the time elapses, this radioactive carbon, this is radioactive in nature, so the radioactive carbon, it decays to nitrogen 14. The radioactive carbon, it continuously decays to nitrogen 14 with the half-life of 5760 years. So the half-life of radioactive carbon is 5760 years, and you have to remember this number, that the half-life of radioactive carbon is 5760 years. Now let's say if you have a sample, let's say there are 1000 number of radioactive carbons. There are 1000 number of radioactive carbons which are present in this sample. So after 5760 years, what will happen? There will be only 500 remaining radioactive carbons which are present in this sample, and rest of the 500 will be nitrogen 14, because radioactive carbon, it decays to nitrogen 14 with a half-life of 5760 years. Now this was the case when the plant or animal has just died. So we have referred to it as 0 years, that no time has elapsed. But after the death of the plant or animal, as the time elapses, as the time increases, the radioactive carbon, the quantity of radioactive carbon will decrease, whereas the ordinary carbon, quantity of ordinary carbon will remain the same over the years. The radioactive carbon after 5760 years, so this is the amount of radioactive carbon which was present at the time of death, that is at 0 years. But after 5760 years, if we look into the body of that particular plant or that of animal, we will see that the amount of radioactive carbon has reduced to half of its initial quantity, because we know the radioactive carbon, it has a half-life of 5760 years, means after 5760 years the quantity of radioactive carbon will reduce to half of its initial value. Now this was the initial value of radioactive carbon at 0 years. Now if you see in the body of plant or animal, that particular plant or animal which has died, if you look into the body of plant or animal after 5760 years, you will see the quantity of radioactive carbon has reduced to its half, whereas the quantity of ordinary carbon, it remains the same. Now again after 5760 years, the quantity of radioactive carbon will reduce to its half. Again it will reduce to its half. That is exactly after 5760 plus 5760, that is 11,520 years. After 11,520 years, the radioactive carbon, it has become this much amount. So here it has reduced to half of its value. Again it has reduced to half of its value. And again after 5760 years, you will see that the radioactive carbon, it has again reduced to half of its initial value. So By looking into the quantity of the radioactive carbon, by looking into the quantity of how much radioactive carbon is remaining in the sample, we can exactly find how many years it has elapsed after the death of that particular plant or animal. By determining the quantity of the radioactive carbon which is present in the sample, we can find how many years have elapsed after the death of that particular specimen. Now, after the death of plant or animal, there is no intake of radioactive carbon. So with time, the amount of radioactive carbon will decrease. Now after 5760 years, it will become half of its initial value. Then again after further 5760 years, means after the addition of further 5760 years, means 11,520 years. After these many years, the quantity of radioactive carbon will become half of its initial value. So earlier it was, let's say this was one quantity and it reduces to its half, further it again reduces to its half, means it becomes half of half, that is 1/4. So after 11,520 years, the quantity of the radioactive carbon will become 1/4. Then again after 5760 years, means 17,218 years, the quantity will be half of half, that will be equal to 1/8. So by determining how much amount of radioactive carbon is left in the sample, we can actually find how many years have elapsed after the death of the particular species. So by knowing the ratio of radioactive carbon to the ordinary carbon, it is possible to find age of ancient objects and remains of organic origin. So this is how we use the method of radioactive decay. We use the process of radioactive decay to find the age of various objects and other remains of organic origin. And this whole procedure in which we take the use of radioactive carbon to determine the age, such process is called as carbon dating. So this whole procedure in which we use radioactive carbon to determine the age of various objects is called as carbon dating. So how do we determine what is the formula to find the age of a particular specimen? Now let's say activity at a particular time is given by capital R. So when the plant or animal, when the species has just died, let's say the activity of the radioactive carbon is given by R0, and after various time has elapsed, after various number of years have passed, let's say the activity of the radioactive carbon, it has reduced to capital R. So this was the initial activity and capital R is the final activity. So activity at a particular time is given by capital R, and activity of the sample at the time of the death, that is at the time of the death, is given by R0. And we are well known with the relation of activity at a particular time. So activity at a particular time is given by R0 into e power minus lambda t. So this will help us in determining the age of a particular object. So if we want to find the age of a particular object, first of all we are going to see the activity of the radioactive carbon which is present in that sample at a particular time when we want to find the age, and the activity at the time of death is given by R0. So using these two numbers, using capital R and R0, because capital R can be determined as well as R0 can be determined experimentally. So using these two numbers we can find the age of a particular specimen. So if you know capital R and you know capital R0, and lambda is also known to us because we are using carbon dating, that is we are using the radioactive carbon. So half-life of radioactive carbon is given by 5760 years. So this is the half-life of the radioactive carbon, and from this number, we can find lambda. Now lambda is the decay constant and lambda is given by 0.693 divided by T half. So lambda can be found out for the case of radioactive carbon. So lambda is also known to us. So we know capital R and we know capital R0, and lambda is also known to us. So using this formula we can easily find the time period. So we can easily find the time. So this will help us in finding the age of a particular object. Now, what are the limitations of carbon dating? This carbon dating method to determine the age of a particular specimen, it is limited to about 50,000 years only. So this gives us accurate results if the age of the specimen is less than 50,000 years. So this is the limitation of carbon dating method, that it is limited to about 50,000 years only. So if you want to find the age of a specimen which is older than 50,000 years, so other methods are used to determine the age of that particular specimen. The first method is the potassium argon method. Now in the case of radioactive carbon, the radioactive carbon, it decays into nitrogen 14. So radioactive carbon, it decays into nitrogen 14. So this was the parent nuclei and this was the daughter nuclei with a half-life of 5760 years. Now this potassium argon method, in this particular method the parent nuclei is potassium 40. So parent nuclei will be potassium 40 and daughter nuclei will be argon 40, and half-life of potassium 40 is 1.3 into 10 power 9 years. So the half-life of carbon 14 was 5760 years, but here the half-life it is 1.3 into 10 power 9. So half-lives you can clearly see they are of the order of 10 power 9. So obviously these methods, they will help us in determining the age of very old specimens which are older than 50,000 years. So in this first method, potassium is the parent nuclei and argon is the daughter nuclei, and half-life is about 1.3 into 10 power 9 years. Now second method is the uranium lead method. Now in this case uranium-238 is the radioactive nuclei, parent nuclei, and lead-206 is the daughter nuclei with a half-life of 4.5 into 10 power 9 years. Then last one is the rubidium-strontium method. In this case rubidium-87 is the parent nuclei which decays into strontium-87 which is the daughter nuclei with a half-life of about 4.7 into 10 power 10 years. So these three methods, they are used to determine the age of various objects which are older than 50,000 years.